Hello, marketers. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to Creating a Demand Gen Engine, presented by the gals from EMA. That's myself, Joanne McDougald, and Courtney Kell. We are advisors and co-founders of Expert Marketing Advisors. And Court, I'll pass it over to you. Welcome, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Joe. We're thrilled to have everybody here and be talking about a very popular topic, demand gen. Seems to be one of the things that folks come to us the most for. So it is one of our wheelhouses for getting the foundation of everything going as folks are looking to go to market. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. We'll take it to the next slide here and kick it off. Oh, seem to go 2 slides. Let's go back there. Great. So the agenda here, we're only going to insert one metaphor, and then we'll save you the pain. So if you think about when you lay out the foundation and build your demand gen engine, you think about sort of getting your army together, having your architects, which we think about our team at EMA, and then building the foundation of the house. You don't want to put your house on quicksand, and you need to think about knowing the neighborhood, understanding that buyer, and then laying out the blueprints for building the best house possible, and then of course the playbook that's needed to build that house. So we'll go through that agenda. We'll keep it pretty straightforward and simple for all those folks that are looking to insert best practices. So Joe, did you want to kind of touch on any of those?
No, I think we're all set. We're just going to talk a little bit about EMA. We're going to talk about the tech stack creation, how we view that. Again, understanding the buyer, then ways to provide the right content along the buyer's journey, and then what we implement. And by the way, we primarily market to and for high-tech B2B tech companies, and that's our wheelhouse, and that's kind of what we're going to share with you today. Off to the races.
Great. Let's dive in. Great. So EMA, just real quickly, let's touch on us. We do have an army. We have a crew of experts that are very passionate in all their various expertise and their specialties. We all know marketing is not a team of one, although we all have been the first one on the ground and also the last one standing. It is not easy. We also have, the seasoned advisors. So with that, we have a crew. We're very, very proud of the folks that we have on board, and are able to touch across the board end-to-end marketing with B2B tech companies. So able to get things done very quickly and with a lot of agility for companies like yourselves.
Yeah, 100%. Marketing is a team sport, and we like, and you guys do this every day. You've got the people that actually work at the company, but you always have a bevy of contractors that can help you out. We're a company that comes replete with an entire marketing team's bevy of contractors available, however you need some support. And for us, it's just super fun. We've, over the years that we've been working together, we just managed to keep a hold of the great contractors that we've used, and we've just sort of built this posse of folks that we can insert into companies and help you guys meet your goals. And demand gen is one of those major goals, and we've got folks that really understand integrated marketing programs and how that can really be helpful to an organization.
Great. So getting to the actual demand gen engine, and what we recommend as best practice for going about laying that foundation. And a lot of folks do approach it with, let's talk about campaigns, or let's talk about messaging, or let's talk about programs. We like to take a step back and really get that tech stack and that engine together in a way that can then support the other layers of marketing, which would be the messaging and the programs and other things. So get that engine going. Let's dive into the tech stack creation. Okay, so this is a simplified version, although there's a lot here, so we can talk about this slide until we're blue in the face. We do refer to this a lot. It's our marketing funnel and our sales pipe. A lot of folks have different versions of this. We try to streamline it so it simplifies the sales cycle. You got the blue down at the bottom, which is the sales pipe, and then the marketing funnel at the top, which is the orange. And then sitting in between is where your BDRs or your SDRs are really qualifying things and keeping marketing honest as to what we're handing off for quality leads. The tech stack on the left is where you see Discover Org is what we recommend for really pumping in new leads, targeted folks, and just getting sort of your database going. We do recommend Bright Talk for, external-facing webinars, getting your message out there, syndicating videos, syndicating podcasts, using it as a channel. There's also various other channels. We're using this as an example. We also recommend Marketo or HubSpot as well. We can use those interchangeably. Don't need both, of course. And then something of the sort of Sales Loft, or there's other various ones for your BDRs to get that cadence in place to start working on those MQLs and working on those qualified leads. And that's where you flip over from a lead to a contact, of course, and then start working the accounts into actual identified ops. And that's where everything sits at the bottom of the funnel or bottom of the pipeline into actual SFDC and what we call the single source of truth. And you can see there the actual sales cycle is anywhere from 6 to 9 or even 12 months, which is what I think we all identify across B2B tech sales, and sitting somewhere in between the SMB and enterprise sales.
Yeah, and there are lots and lots of other tools that can be implemented, but I think for us, what we're always trying to help our clients with is simplicity. Like, figure out what all of these stages actually mean, codify that, make sure everybody understands, especially, as the bottom of the sales process. What does it mean to enter that stage? What does it mean to be in that stage? And what does it mean to graduate and exit from that stage, and really pound away and make sure everybody understands, because people might think, oh yeah, we have BANT to get, a 10% opportunity. And really, they just mean that they have TAB or BAT. And by that, I mean budget, authority, need, and time frame. And maybe they just decide, oh, we can just have, budget, authority, and time frame. And that works to get in it. So we all have to agree and really codify those things. I don't know, Court, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have folks that we've worked with, of course, our clients that are, we've come in and they've already had, these things defined, or we've also come in and we're working with brand new foundations that we get to set up, brand new instances. So, to Joe's point, we get to, level set and codify things across the board. It's just a matter of where we're setting up those best practices, so to speak. I see that we have a comment here coming from the audience where someone's calling out that Marketo is the best. We actually, Joe has been, Marketo certified. We have several folks on our team that are Marketo certified, and we do tend to lean that direction. However, over the last year and a half, we have brought on a team of experts that also support Pardot and HubSpot. And, we can kind of go any direction. We've seen folks go from Pardot to Marketo to HubSpot. And now at this point, we don't recommend changing yet again. It's sort of up to the preference of the client and what folks are using and what works best for them. It's interesting to see the different tools implementing different up-and-coming technology to keep up with each other.
Yeah, but I would feel free to liberate this slide from our deck, because as marketers, you're often educators as well as partners to sales, and you really want to explain to them sort of how the funnel can work, what are the tools that you can use to help them along their journey, and basically level set. Like, this takes time, and you've got a process. You've just got to implement a process and stick to that process and refer to that and share how it is you codify that, so that everybody is aware and trusts what's happening, because there's a lot of money being spent, obviously investments being made, and you want everybody to feel like, you know, marketing is there as a partner of sales and is there to help support them and has a plan.
Absolutely. So with that, let's see. Everything rolling into sales. At the end of the day, marketing works for sales. We all work for sales. You know, the company as a whole lives and dies by revenue. So a little bit about that. You know, we do consider demand gen, pipeline, channel, BDR. Some folks have the BDR team rolling into sales or sometimes rolling into marketing. Regardless, we've seen it all come to success at the end of the day when we all work cohesively and there's a bridge and we're all, the communication there is very very transparent. So here are some of the what we would call KPIs or some things to really keep a close eye on it as far as where the performance lies. A couple comments there, Joe?
Yeah, I'm just gonna hound in on this because you know, for BDRs, like making sure that everybody is constantly, you know, being judged with the time frames of you know, picking up those leads that marketing has spent, you know, all of these investment dollars on the company's behalf. We go to the trade show, we scan the leads, we put them into the database, we try to nurture them with messages that speak to them, and then we need that accompaniment of the BDR team to pick up those leads and make sure of that. And all of this only really happens when there's visibility. And so I think all of the tools that we've talked about in the prior slide give us all visibility about like what marketing brought to the table, and then the opportunities that sales has had to pick them up and make sure that they move through the cycle. And being able to really set some time frames and limits has been the most successful thing for me. Obviously, you know, post a trade show when you might, you know, I've been on the one side where we've scanned like very few leads, and on the other side where I've scanned 5,000 names at a trade show, you know, getting a triage team together, making sure that everybody understands like we're going after these, you know, build out, you know, after event drip campaigns that help bring them up. But it's definitely visibility and follow-up that are the key to everyone's success in this. And so that's all I got to say about that. I really like this slide for any of you guys, you know, if you're trying to think about like what are potential KPIs that you could put against your channel, against your performance metrics, pipeline, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it does pull everything together to bring it back to results and tracking for sales. Great. With that, we certainly don't want to be, you know, bringing in, doing any type of activity that isn't focused on, you know, the right people. And so the important part of the demand gen engine is understanding who you're going after and where that all lands. So let's have a conversation about building into the demand gen engine the right tactics around your buyer. So let's dive into that. This one is a bit of an eye chart. We like to use it. It can definitely be scaled down. So I apologize on all of the nitty gritty here, but really the takeaway is, you know, this is an example, of course, but it's a simplistic way as well for sales and marketing to understand, you know, where a buyer sits in the org chart from top left, reading across and then down, where they sit in the org chart, what their exact role is, or the various job titles that they may have. Nobody can be both all four, a buyer, user, influencer, and decision maker. So usually they have two of the four or potentially three of the four. And then what's their actual buying center? Where are their various watering holes as far as what are they reading? Where are they going? You know, and where you can find them. And then it's always nice to look at the actual journey that they take along the buying cycle. So it's a little bit hard to read there. I apologize, but really it comes down to, you know, what are the various assets that you want to use as you're reaching out to them. and then at the end of the day, what do they think about at night? And get yourself out of your own head as you're approaching them, as you're prospecting them, and think about what they think about at night and throughout the day, and when they go and approach their work week. So we really like to reference a simple, straightforward one-pager like this.
Yeah, and this is a sales enablement tool that normally sales get, but marketing needs it as much as they do. Like you'll have people on your team that produce this, maybe your product marketing team will, but they really have to share it with the demand gen folks so that you guys are completely in sync with, what keeps these guys up at night? What are the types of messages that you need to have? And if you don't have access to these tools, I would go and ask your product marketing folks to make sure you get that. And as people learn more and more about who eventually is the buyer and the influencer and the decision maker, that you guys get that changing information, because that can happen over time. How do you go about building a buyer persona? That is a great question. You work in tandem with your product marketing team. You interview past purchasers and then figure out like where they went to find out about you, what were the messages that initially spoke to them, what was the sales pitch that worked, and really it's a hand in glove thing between sales and marketing, and really you have to revisit this. This is not a one and done process. So as your product offer might change, as even the cycle changes, you're going to speak to them differently, because you're going to talk to the influencer a little bit differently. You're going to speak to the buyer a little differently. And how you speak to them a lot of times is with content. And I think that's our next slide, is kind of around mapping the content to the buyer's journey. So as you're taking them through this, you really want to set a pace to look at how asset creation matches up with what is needed in the next obvious phase of the buyer's journey.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit more to going about building a buyer persona, there's also a lot of magic that comes from interviewing folks, both interviewing internally and externally. So there's incredible amount of goodness that can come from capturing these interviews. You can do podcasts. You can just reach out and just be direct and have those one-on-one conversations, and just really turn out a ton of content as well, just from that in and of itself. Find messaging that is sort of lifting up the rock and hidden goodness. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it and get creative. Happy to dive into that in more in more depth offline. Just really just look at each section here across this slide, and you can find a lot of this stuff is really out there already existing. You just have to kind of lift up the rock and go digging for it. Great. Next slide there. Let's see what we got. Oh, providing the right content. Correct, Joe, what you were saying. So aligning the content to the actual buyer. So, this one really across a very simplistic buyer's journey. So every sort of, you can make this everything from unaware all the way through to aware or becoming educated to, the consideration part of starting to look at competitive buyers as well, or competitive matrix, and then all the way through to purchase, and then the actual renewal and expansion part. And then, you really want to get that loyalty and stickiness. So it's that cross-sell, upsell. Mapping, some of the assets, we kept these really generic here. Some of these can really, you can really build them out to again, be that sort of loyalty, the stickiness, and really grab that customer, so those customer stories as well. But really want to kind of get the overall general sort of story here, so the general understanding for this. And it's basically a digital journey as well as a physical piece to component to this. Is that's where you see the user groups or the road shows, and you can leverage both angles to get the full experience for the buyer. Anything additional on that one, Joe?
Yeah, I would just say, you're just a lot of times our clients are very small startups, and so having this long of a list can be a burden for smaller companies. But you just know the basics that you have to have, and you just set up your your content calendar and you begin to plot away. But it gives you a framework by which you're going to create content, and that is by persona and along and where they are in terms of either a buyer, an influencer, or a user. And then you just want to create the content for those three voices for each persona. Like it can be a lot, and it can just be as little as just changing up, even just the email subject line in order to really, get them to understand how you can best help them, how your product can best solve their pain. And that's all the content is designed to do, is to show them about your product, how you solve it uniquely, why you're better and different than your competitors. And you just now have sort of a framework by which to do that.
Yeah, the key here is to keep it simple and direct. People don't really want things that are, overcomplicated. Just keep it to where everyone can understand it to the extent that even your mom can translate it. So we kind of the ultimate test when we're interviewing our sales reps as to how they have the most success at the end of the interview. Joe's famous last closing question is, how do you explain what you do to your mom? And that's really sort of the fun takeaways. Okay, so it's especially in B2B tech, sometimes it can get really a little bit more overly complicated, but when you really break it down and try to extract the top line messaging, that also is sort of where we want the content to come across as well. So that's a nice little takeaway too, a little bit of best practice. Great. We have one question coming in before we move on to the a cadence that we like to practice. How do you decide on the content of the assets, test what resonates and what doesn't? Joe, do you want to take that one? The content of the assets and what resonates and what doesn't. So I'm leaning toward A/B testing on that, but just even, first and foremost, how do we even decide what to A/B test?
Yeah, I mean, right, and what you can do as a simple way is that you can write a blog about a topic and then share that on social media, and then if you get a lot of interest from that blog topic, then that probably would warrant a further deep dive into a white paper. We've had a lot of success by testing smaller messages on some of the social channels that way, and just being able to get the data back. And an inexpensive $300 spend on a social channel that can really yield to a somewhat targeted audience can yield a lot of information for us, and then we iterate on that 100%. It's all about trying and testing. There's not an infinite amount of marketing dollars at play, and we try to help our clients make the investments that will best yield the results that we're all looking for along the way.
Yeah, and so actually that plays well into this next slide. There's a lot of tricks to really extending the life and getting as much goodness out of even just one single effort around an asset and the energy that you put into a single week, a single month, and so on. So an example of that, so we like to just lay the groundwork and get sort of what we call the muscle memory around programs, and then from the programs is where you layer on the next set of say campaigns, and then you extract from your top line messaging the other elements that again would be the campaigns. So if you're looking at this, and really the takeaway is in the bolded area, the first week of every month, you're creating an asset, some type of asset, whether it's a light short video or whether it's a little bit longer podcast or some element, an article, or something that's external facing, use case, customer, et cetera. So an asset of some type. And then with week 2 is where you push out a blog. And it's just that at beginning stages, and if you're creating more blogs than just the once a month blog, that's great. But with a small team, it's essentially, this is the bare minimum that you want to get in place and have that cadence. And then with week 3 is the webinar. It's again, we recommend using BrightTalk because they do have a community, and it allows that lead gen component to take place, and you're reaching into their community of targeted leads. So going back again, asset at the beginning of the month, the blog at the second week of the month, that blog is related to the webinar that you're going to be, that you're producing in week 3. And so it essentially promotes into that webinar. Week 3's webinar goes out into the world, and then you have the recording, which then you put all wrapped up into week 4's newsletter. So the newsletter, at the bare minimum, you've got everything wrapped up from that month. You've got those 3 things: the asset, the blog, and the webinar. You may have more goodness, but that's enough to put out into your entire database. This is everything that we've done for the month, and we've got a little teaser for the following month, whether it's an event or the next month's upcoming webinar. It's just enough to send out to your database, keep them interested. You don't want to overly saturate your database and send them too many emails, but it does allow for your sales team to then at the end of the month, they're focused on closing deals, getting the opportunities moving through the sales pipe. You're focused on creating MQLs for them at the start of the next month. So that newsletter creates that sort of upward bubble of MQLs for week 1. And then it also cleanses your database, because folks that are not interested will unsubscribe. And it does 2 things, so which is all exactly what marketing should be doing. So that's really what we're trying to show here, is that muscle memory of the basis of your programs. And then, as I said again, you start layering the actual campaigns on from there. You can start, creating that buyer-specific focus for the messaging piece. Kind of a mouthful there.
Yeah,
you kind of
it is, but I think it's
yeah.
And this is like the thing that we bring to all of our clients. We're just, because a lot of them have been doing marketing, but what we want to do is just give them a framework that they can implement. And it seems simplistic, but for a lot of clients, to bridge this gap between, we just respond to whenever sales need something, to just setting up a cadence that sales can then rely on, becomes different. So then, and as you think about other things you're going to layer in here, of course, you might go to some trade shows and other things. At least it just bleeds into this otherwise, kind of high-level framework, and it just, really helps solidify that relationship between marketing and sales.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that cadence and the reliability, to Joe's point. Great. So this actually nicely leads into our playbook. So that is a bit of our playbook. Again, it gives that foundation. The demand gen engine is now going, and so we like to then introduce it is sort of that planning and creation part. There's a timeline sample here. I know we're already into February, but just think of that 6-month sort of growth plan. So we're now into executing and measuring, and then of course adjusting and scaling. So it's that sort of 30, 60, 90, and also the longer tail of, okay, let's think of what we can accomplish in the longer vision. You get those early wins, and then you target those longer vision, bigger wins. So this is an example of where we look in the very beginning at sort of the business alignment. What do we need to be doing for positioning in the market? The strategy and messaging, which is not an easy feat. We want to eventually layer that on top of, again, the programs to slice out those campaigns. Pull in the tech stack to the website so that it can start generating actual attribution across the inbound programs, and the inbound and outbound, of course. And then we're now sitting in the programs area with the actual cadences, the cadence of the, again, assets being created, the external facing webinars, and then our monthly newsletters. And then Joe, you're phenomenal on those nurture piece. So maybe you want to touch on the nurtures and the outbound pieces there, and how that all pulls back to analytics and the tracking, which of course is that goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're now living in sort of a post-ABM world, and so nurturing can happen sort sort of in all different places. It's not just simply nurture emails, but it can also be, you know, providing people with retargeting ads that bring them to, you know, more of a squeeze page that, you know, really encourages them to download a really high-end asset. And then really just finding ways to meet them where they are. I don't know what it is this year, but stickers are amazingly popular. I'm running a program now that I'm doing physical mailers, super cheap on the front end, just, you know, like die cut stickers that people are just seem to be mad for. And then I know everyone's laptop is covered. I want a count of people, like how many stickers do you have on your laptop? And then from there we'll, when they follow up to get an additional piece to hear more and they can get their headphones, then we've got that program running. It's super fun. I just like to really encourage different ways to help engage with people. Obviously, you know, we know a lot about our buyers. We know more about our buyers than ever before with the likes of Demandbase and Bombora and others. We know who's in market, leverage that data to try to, you know, go after and put your name in front of those people at the right time and just make that all happen.
Yeah, great. We have a few questions coming in regarding the presentation and where the images and such will be available, and if we're sharing the slides. So they are available on BrightTalk here in the attachments and links area, and we will also be making them available on our website, which is expertmarketingadvisors.com. Great, thanks so much. So diving into now, of course, the team that is what we recommend to pull all of this off. Some folks, again, are the first one on the ground or the last one standing, so they're kind of, you know, left to your own accord to make it all happen. Or you do have the ability to pull in a larger team, and it's all based off of budget and where you are in the stage of your company's growth. So we kind of look at it as, you know, of course, the team effort. I like to look at this sort of as the overlapping sort of different new dynamic of marketing, where there's sort of that air traffic control center person looking at things with strategy, and then there's the overlap of all the other areas and how they integrate with each other and lean on each other. If folks do not have this, that's where, you know, EMA or expert marketing advisors really works out well, to the extent of, you know, you don't have the ability to have a full-time content and creative person. You don't have a full-time demand gen person or operations. And we really understand that, and we have the ability to really just be that Band-Aid and plug that hole and insert the best practices until you do have that, or you know, get you level set and ensure the results are still occurring every week and every month, and make sure you look your absolute best every step of the way. But this is a great way of looking at how everybody can really contribute and feel like they're still able to overlap and look toward each other for different needs.
Yeah, and my take on this slide is just, you know, if you're going to run CMO school, this is how you do it. So you just put that person in the middle, and you guys all share what you're actually delivering this week and what's the best way that everybody else can leverage that asset, that event, that nurture program, so that everybody knows that you're working in conjunction. There's a lot of people that work in marketing, a lot of contractors. Everybody has to kind of understand how they can help leverage, make sure your social team is sharing things, make sure that, you know, you did this great Gartner report, but only, you know, AR seems to know about it. Everybody needs to know what's happening. And this is the best way, is really to have a team effort and just take that to heart, and don't just make it a slide, but make it reality in your organization.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely a difference between talking and walking. We'd like to ensure that's all happening. So we're kind of getting toward the end here. We definitely wanted to touch on just, all the different elements that work together to really truly make integrated marketing and integrated programs. There's a lot more to really repurposing things and all the various creative sides of marketing. Physical events, you definitely want to complement physical events with virtual events. Speaking submissions, you can record those speaking submissions and turn them into blogs and turn them into podcasts. Really taking every last drop of everything that's happening and getting everybody goodness. The social channels, it's a daily practice. Joe likes to call it yoga. It's not something that can just be touched every so often. And there's definitely best practices and tips and tricks to ensure that that's ongoing, growing channel. We've seen actual incredible results where folks have connected with us 2 years ago on Twitter, and then all of a sudden they connect with us on LinkedIn, and then they go from LinkedIn to our inbox, and then from our inbox to our telephone, and now lo and behold, they're a ghostwriter for us. So there is a long tail to it, but it is worth it. And then across the board, the industry research programs that, you got to have your evangelists, you've got to have your competitive external validation, and so on. Then, maybe Joe, if you want to touch across the bottom four, and then it extends from there, of course.
Yeah, I think most of you guys, you're on this call, you understand, how it all works, obviously. But the point here is that as each of these programs gets launched, you just need to make sure that everyone else on the team can leverage that. I'll give you just a quick example. So we went to a trade show with one of our clients in December. At that trade show, we scanned leads. We made a commitment to them to have, to scan 10% of the show, not for the faint of heart. We didn't have the most fabulous giveaway, but we did have tenacious people in the booth that were willing to help scan people. Then from that, we also did a survey while we were at the show. And that survey was 5 quick questions about, how the market was moving and what people thought about that. So just sort of a high level AR, and our PR team helped us inform those questions. And we, you kind of think about, like, what's the press release that you would eventually want to write about that post this show before you do the survey. We did the survey. We took the survey home. We analyzed the data. And then, we published survey results about this thought topic. We preached that to the press. So we got a writer to write about the survey results. We manufactured news from nothing by going to a trade show. That is unheard of. It didn't cost our client any more. We just, took time, talent, and hard work to make that happen. And that's gold. So, like, you guys can do that. You can just work a little bit more creatively and help your sales teams get the message out, give them something to talk about, give them a new asset that you've now created, create a conversation that isn't always all about sales. That was more about, the changing landscape of technology, of a technology that we were helping share the news about. And it was fun. Like, that was one of the things about marketing. Like, it's a super creative practice, and it gives you opportunities to do all sorts of things, which is why we love EMA, because what we've got on our team are people who like to do the things that they do. And so, if you don't like writing, don't write. If you don't like PR, don't do PR. But for those people that like those types of things, we've given them an avenue that they can work on that and be productive and happy and not have to worry about the other things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stay where you're passionate, love what you do, and it really doesn't feel like work after that. And another point on the capturing the surveys, capturing podcasts, executing webinars, anything out of a recording. Transcriptions are a tremendous amount of value. Transcribe, put it with the website, the recordings that you put out external facing on your website. That also becomes a tremendous amount of SEO goodness, calling out all the keywords, of course. Great. I think that about wraps it up for us. There's questions coming in, so they They don't necessarily tie into things that we've talked about here. So we have a question here saying regarding, do we have a recommendation for online chat to help with demand and BDR roles? To be honest, we don't have a specific recommendation. There's several. I definitely recommend just evaluating them against each other. They're not expensive. I mean, they're fairly cheap. They're not breaking the bank. Just look for how they integrate with your existing tech stack. You definitely want to make sure they tie into SFDC and that you're getting that real-time connection there, the real-time sync, and that your BDRs are getting alerted. Just look for a trial of some sort is what I'd recommend, and just compare them against each other is really how I'd go against it, or go about it and just test. Make sure you test. Joe, do you have any thoughts about that? Because we don't pull in the online chat functionality at this point for our clients until they're much farther along in their journey.
Yeah, I have no comment on that.
Okay. We do have a question.
I have no response to that. No. No. I think you summed it up as well as I would have. Thanks.
Yeah, it's not something I would consider a strong tool. I mean, we've embedded them with folks in the past. I've embedded them on various sites, and it just they're kind of just there. They don't end up being a large demand gen part of the demand gen engine. And then also we have a question around what would be the best MQL strategy to reach efficient SQLs. Really, this comes down to making sure your scoring is accurate. So we just have a very straightforward spreadsheet that we make sure is really well vetted around demographic and behavioral scoring. In the early days, we want to make sure all eyes, so a lot of things are bubbling up, and then it's a constant tweaking. So as you get more activities going out there in the world, constant feedback, and then from your reps, and as to what's working, what's not working. As we'd like to think everything is automated and it's all refined and working well, automation still has glitches. So make sure you're CC'd on all of the internal MQL alerts. And just keep that constant cadence going so that there's not this, what have you done for me?
And as we move up the tech stack between MQL and SAL, you've got to just map and monitor everything. And as long as you set up the process, and that's what we're saying, like Courtney said at the beginning, we've got to build the right house. You've got to build the tech stack and make sure that it will track along that entire buyer's journey so that you can determine, we were going after the wrong persona, got a bunch of MQLs because they like to click and open things or go to webinars, but those weren't our buyers. And so we've got to go back and revisit that. So this is not a one and done situation, and making sure that you've got the foundation that will help you track that is the only way that you will get the data that will allow you to make those changes with confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So I think we're wrapping up. There's one more question here. Can you comment on the efficacy of co-hosting with analysts or with a customer, of course, or a partner? It can be expensive to do with a customer, et cetera. So absolutely. So in the early days, we definitely, third week of every month, host a webinar. Keep that cadence regardless of whether or not you have an external person co-hosting with you. Obviously, the best scenario, best practice, you want an analyst, you want a customer. Ideally, let that customer sing your praise, let them tell the story. If you aren't able to line up any of those folks, it's absolutely fine. Still host. Keep that channel growing. As you get further along, month after month after month, it actually gets to a point where maybe you need to host 2 a month. And that's dependent upon your channel and how well your partner channel is growing, or how well your tech alliances are coming about. and then of course your customers. How fast is your your base? So it's a good problem to have, and there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, it's just staying in front of it, and just keeping again that pattern. I actually ran into this problem, and BrightTalk has used me as a use case, where we had so many folks that wanted to do the third week of January a couple of years ago or 3 years ago. I've lost track of time, and I didn't want to push them off because I didn't want to lose the opportunity. And so rather than saying no, you can't do that January, you've got to do the February or March, I just said, well, let's just say yes to everybody, and it became our own a hosted virtual summit, and it was a good problem to have again, and we ended up having thousands of net new leads. So further comments on that one, Joe? It's a bit of a adrenaline
I think
rush.
he's sort of, or she are asking about the efficacy. If we see a lot of people getting real value out of hosting and paying for third parties like analysts and I think you answered it, customers are the number one person that you want speaking about you. If you decide to do a pay to play, I would just send in Courtney as my main negotiator and just try and get as many guaranteed leads at the lowest price possible and get somebody talking about you. It can be an important asset. Again, on the buyer's journey, you saw we had analyst pieces there, and so you do need some third-party validation. If you don't have any, it can be a nice offer that you can make in addition to your stack of assets that help people along the buyer's journey. So with that,
yeah, absolutely, great. That was fun. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed it, and appreciate the extra time there. We'll keep it a little bit shorter next time. Great. All right. Have a good day, and enjoy the rest of the day, and hope everybody enjoyed the presentation as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks,
See you.
Bye.
Bye.